Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Harley Quinn Season 1, Episodes 1 through 3. I honestly have to say that Harley Quinn, this show, is probably a much more better origin story than Birds of Prey ever was. Like, I think that this show is very funny. It has a lot of goofy things going on with it. I like this kind of Gotham world compared to the Birds of Prey film. Yeah, it might be a little bit more like profanity and cussing and whatever, but really, also it kind of is fast and loose with its content. Like, you can kind of see any number of people being able to do any number of things, and that's the thing that I like about it. We have Batman being accused of effing bats in this show. James Gordon is probably the funniest character in the show. Every time I see him, I just have a good laugh, or I just enjoy this character. Really, just this story is to basically showcase the origins of Harley Quinn, having her eventually break up with Joker to go on her own, and eventually decide that she needs to have people help her out along the way, like starting to uh, cling on to certain things like needing henchmen, or also just needing to like get invited to places and showcasing that like she will eventually be as good as Joker, and everybody laughs at her and like, there's no way you're going to be as good as Joker. No way. So within this first episode, really, I like the fact that we are to really actually showcase, like, also Batman, but Batman's rogues gallery of people, like very popular villains that people are to know, like Bane, Scarecrow, Two Face, uh, but also some people that you don't, like KG Beast and Felix Faust and uh, Maxine, or God, what is his name? Maxi Zeus, like within these three episodes. Also, but we'll get to other kind of things also. So going into this, I thought that this show was fun. I liked it. It was an enjoyable show. There's not much to really say beyond that. Like within this first episode, it's really just to mainly go into the relationship between Joker and Harley Quinn, and why Harley Quinn needs to leave this relationship. The second episode is to really focus on Harley Quinn going into a party, realizing that she is uh, a party crasher, a party killer, and also just a person that needs to just have herself get out of this party because everybody is just going to want her dead at some point. And then the third episode is, of course, Harley Quinn finding some people that she is going to obtain in her crew. Basically, there's a lot of people that, like, it kind of gets to the bottom of the barrel of Harley Quinn just accepting certain applicants because no one else would ever want to hire any of these people. So Harley Quinn is. So, and eventually, like, there's a whole, like, it's a very goofy reason for, like, the real true objective of this episode. Uh, but it's just kind of like they had to figure out some way of putting something in here to eventually use it as uh, for Harley to be able to do something at the tail end of this. And so, like, that's what this kind of just goes into in the very third episode. So, like I said, there's some interesting, goofy things going on here. There's a lot of points in time where there's probably a lot of stuff, especially going on in this pilot episode. And eventually there's a lot of randomness to be put into this episode. All of a sudden we're having, like, at one point, like, Howie Mandel is doing a cooking show, and like we're just like, what the heck is going on there? Like, a lot of randomness, a lot of funny things, but also a lot of randomness being put together in a lot of these shows. Poison Ivy's to bizarrely have a talking plant that makes no sense. uh the Riddler is to basically be performing a Batman Forever like scenario in an early episode. And just really, other than that, like, I think that's all that I have to, like, say. I'm going almost into spoiler territory. But anyways, yeah, so, uh, but Harley Quinn is to also go and be reminded that she was a therapist before all this, and that eventually Harley Quinn needs to go into her therapist mind and figure out some things through an episode here. And yeah, like, that's the kind of thing that I like about this episode is we're like trying to remember the early steps of this character, but eventually I think from time to time the whole therapist thing will be brought back to the fold. Eventually, when Harley is to consistently remember like origin parts of her character. So, with that said, I think that's all I wanted to say about these first three episodes. Let's quickly get into all these and call it a day. So, I think it's about time to say let's go into that coveted double 5 time territory of spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about the time to spoil this episode. So, the very early on of this episode, this very first pilot episode, we have Harley that is to go onto a boat, thinking that, okay, this is her first solo caper, and she's going to be stealing stuff from these guys on this boat. But then all of a sudden, the Joker is to arrive, and all of a sudden, tear off this captain's mask that is actually just this guy's skin, and play as a puppet with it and freak people out. And so Joker is to come in and all of a sudden just start throwing like Joker bombs and killing everyone off. And Harley Quinn is like, dude, I could have taken these guys out. Like, I could have easily done this because immediately, like, Joker has that kind of like ADD mind where all of a sudden, like, he easily gets distracted and is all of a sudden just going on his own and just taking everybody out, leaving Harley thinking, well, I guess I'm not just going to be able to do any lick of any of this. I guess I'm just like a bystander and I'll just watch. But so all of a sudden, like, Batman is to arrive on this boat, and then all of a sudden, when Batman is to arrive, Joker is like, yeah, Harley, I'll give you one thing. How about you just take out Batman, so that way, you can help me, like, get my getaway. Because Joker is going and jumping onto a submarine to get the heck out of there, while Harley Quinn is taking supposedly out Batman. So Harley is thinking like, well, yeah, maybe this might be the one time that I might be able to take out Batman and like show up the Joker. And so all of a sudden, Harley Quinn is to turn to Batman, and immediately Batman easily takes her down, cuffs her, and then shortly thereafter that, Batman takes Harley to Commissioner Gordon. And so Harley is to mention that Batman F's bats, and Gordon's like, he doesn't do that. Like, trying to be, I guess, like the Batman fans that are to just like ridicule Harley for any inaccuracies that she used to say about Batman. So consistently, Gordon will come in with all kinds of number of like problems that he's having that no one should really care about. But also, Joker is to also mention about like Batman and how like many things and problems that they've been through their time together, where like Batman is still supposedly angry about Joker handicapping one of his partners and so on and so forth. So eventually, Harley is to, after the talking with Batman and Commissioner Gordon, Harley is to get chucked into Arkham Asylum. And so every day she's going to the spot where both Harley and Harley's waiting for Joker to arrive to talk to her via this phone. I'm going to pause here for a second. Thinking that Joker is going to arrive to see Harley, but Poison Ivy is to say, like, Harley, give it up. Like, Joker is never coming for you. Joker is never going to rescue you. And eventually, Poison Ivy looks at Calendar Man and mentions, like, okay, Calendar Man, how many numerous days has Harley mentioned that the Joker will come for her? And the Calendar Man says, like, to the exact date. And so all of a sudden, Calendar Man turns back to talking to his wife, and his wife mentions, wait a minute, like, you knew about that Harley Quinn gal, but you can't remember our son's birthday? And so Calendar Man is like, well, I know it's in June, like June-ish, like, give me a break. And so the Calendar Man's wife wants to give Calendar Man a cactus, but the police officers won't allow uh, anybody to get any kind of plants in this prison because of poison ivy. And so they end up like breaking the plant because they're like, no, you can't have her, like, you can't have any plants in this prison because of poison ivy. So poison ivy is to forcibly need uh, to tie up Harley Quinn and force her to now therapize her own self. Poison Ivy is to make Harley remember that Harley was a good doctor once, Doctor Quinzel. And so now Harley is going to need to self-diagnose herself. So Harley is talking to herself, a picture of her old self, and Poison Ivy's like, dude, are you seriously going to talk to your photo of you? And Harley's like, shut up, we're making progress. And so this conversation is to lead to Harley realizing that her and the Joker's relationship is a toxic thing that will never really and truly work out, even though Harley is thinking at one point that Joker had proposed to her and said, till death do us part. That's what she is to imagine in her own mind. So, so Harley's realizing that her relationship is toxic, but she doesn't want to completely give up on the Joker just yet. And so all of a sudden, Poison Ivy is to finally be able to break out of prison. It seems that the Riddler had eaten some thing with a seed in it, and that seed he had given to Poison Ivy, and so Poison Ivy had created these plants to go and kill off all of these people. So, and escape from this prison. So Harley is to eventually say, no, I don't want to break out of Arkham because I want to wait for Joker to come because he is going to be able to break me out. And I don't want to be, I don't want him to try to break into Arkham while I'm not here. And so Poison Ivy's like, dude, if you can break out now, break out. It's like, if anything, you've been waiting now for a year for Joker to break you out, and he still hasn't come. Like, he has completely forgotten about you. So now it's your time to escape. And so Harley is forced to escape, and she is to be roomies with Poison Ivy. And so eventually what is to happen is Joker is to go on certain television shows and all kinds of things, like talking about the relationship between Harley Quinn and himself, because Howie Mandel is to have made a joke about the relationship of Joker and Harley, and so Joker straps a bomb to Howie Mandel's chest, and Howie runs off to desperately ask if there's any wardrobe person that will take this bomb off of him. So, pushing on. So, Harley is just so upset that Joker does not really care about Harley Quinn, like, getting out of Arkham, but eventually, like, he cares about all of a sudden like somebody giving him making him a butt of a joke about their relationship. So Harley Quinn goes out of her way to see Joker and goes on to eventually blow up his hideout. And while Harley Quinn is to come to Joker, Joker is to find out on the television that the Riddler has escaped from prison, and he is putting out a riddle that is so funny that people are exploding with how like funny it is. And so the Joker's like, wait a minute, like I'm in the joke game. Like, why is it all of a sudden like Riddler is being funny? Like, there's nothing funny about Riddler. If anything, he's just a narcissistic a-hole, and like that's his shtick. That's his thing. That's his comfort zone. So while Harley is to come in on Joker, all Joker cares about is the whole Riddler situation, and so Harley is to eventually blow up this hideout and just freaking just make her way out of here. She's done. And so Commissioner Gordon is to desperately send out the bat signal and just to like turn it on and off, on and off. And so all of a sudden Batman is to go to see Commissioner Gordon have the bat signal. And so Batman is like, okay, what do you have for me, Gordon? And Gordon like starts like mentioning about all this like less important stuff, like going to like a barbecue with Batman, and barbecue's like, and Batman's like, I am not interested. And so then Gordon is like, well, hey, like if anything, Joker is putting out a riddle that is so funny that that people's heads are exploding. And so Batman and leaves, and but Gordon is consistently like pressing like for him and Batman to do some like barbecue or something, and Batman has no interest. So pushing on. So Batman is to eventually make his way to the Riddler, and so is the Joker, and so is Harley Quinn. Uh, because eventually the Riddler is to go and trap both Batman and Harley Quinn and put them in these spheres and raise them up above to the ceiling to have them be both put into watery graves, or in this case, things of acid. So now the Joker has to decide between either Harley Quinn or Batman, which one is to live. And so Joker is like, well, Harley Quinn is Harley, but if anything, like me and Batman has had like a real long history together, and on top of that, like I honestly don't want the Joker to have been the guy that is to kill Batman. And so no, like I'm going to say Batman to be rescued, because like I just don't want him to be the guy that kills Batman. So Riddler lets Batman go free, and Harley Quinn is to be dipped in acid. And so before Harley gets dipped in acid, Harley asks the Riddler, hey, is this acid something that is going to give me superpowers? And the Riddler is like, no. So Harley is to get pushed into the acid, and eventually Batman and the Joker are to leave. And so Poison Ivy is to retrieve Harvey from this acid, pull her out, and tell her it's like, hey, like, I did this on purpose. Like, I did this for a whole reason. That I was trying to tell you that the Joker will always pick Batman and never you. And so you need to realize it's really time to move on, Harley. Because the acid wasn't actually acid, it was margarita mix, and they had to like go and get an extensive amount of this. And the Riddler was like, "You should have got a Costco card," and Poison Ivy's like, "I don't shop there enough." Like I don't shop there enough to validate the whole like card amount. Uh, so anyways, Poison Ivy is just like yeah, like if anything like that, like margarita mix, it really stings. It's like it's not acid, so at least you got that on your thing there. So anyways, Harley Quinn is to start to realize that the whole dream or whatever thing that she was to have actually was done completely wrong. Instead of the engagement ring that Joker was to have, instead the Joker was to have a grenade pin, and instead of the Joker saying "Death to us part" to Harley Quinn, Joker was saying "Death to us part" to Batman, and so every single time it'll be like Joker and Batman, and really Harley Quinn has made that realization, and that eventually she needs to get her own get up and needs to be on her own, and so that leads us to pretty much the tail end of this episode. So let's go on to the very next episode. So, Joker is to kind of get crap from a lot of his other like proteges, like Bane and Scarecrow, while he's at like the water cooler of the Legion of Doom. And so they're kind of saying like, "Hey man, like it seems like Harley Quinn blew up your place, and it seems that Harley Quinn really is like getting as good as you are." And Joker's like, "No, no, she's not." And like they're really like asking him about like the relationship and everything like that, and so like it's just getting Joker to just want to just leave. So it seems that someone had ate like Bane's favorite like snack or whatever, and so he's like, "I'm gonna blow up the Legion of Doom." Like every single thing is like Bane like blowing up something because it's hilarious. So but evidently everyone was invited to some party, and Harley Quinn wasn't. But if anything, so Harley Quinn is to make it onto this train to try to get this big heist of sorts. And all of a sudden, Harley Quinn is to be met by KG Beast, and excuse me, who and so Harley is to eventually take out KG Beast, but eventually Harley is to eventually see Joker is there. Because Harley is to try to unlock this door with all these keys, but then eventually she keeps finding out there are more and more keys that are to be opening for this door, and so it seems completely impossible for her to be able to get this door open, and so Joker just like blows this whole thing and takes this from Harley, and so Harley just gets more upset with Joker, and so consistent considering Harley wasn't invited to this Legion of Doom party, she decides to crash it. So eventually she puts like a thing of sunglasses and a boa on herself, and so Harley Quinn walks into this party to find out that it's actually a bar mitzvah party for Penguin's son Joshua. And Harley walks in, and all of a sudden the Penguin is just like, "Oh, I guess you're the strippers or whatever for this bar mitzvah." And then he's like, "Oh, hey, hi, Harley." so, uh, so Harley walks in and is going into the table of Legion of Doom, and like Harley is boasting about how she'll be really, really great, and everybody's like, "Dude, you are definitely not like in anything." There's some crack that is given to Bane, and so Bane, while sitting with Two Face and Scarecrow, is like, "I'm gonna blow up this bar mitzvah." So Harley Quinn is kicking her feet up and like boasting about how great she'll be, and that just has her kicked out of this table to go to the kids' table to eventually exchange conversations between everybody. And so the kids mentioned that Joshua had, I guess, finger banged some girl, and Harley Quinn is like, "Wow, like this is real conversation." So immediately Harley Quinn is to transition to get to Poison Ivy, who has been spending uh, her bar mitzvah party with Kite Man. And so Harley Quinn is to mention that she wants to go and break into this vault that seems to be unbreakable. So much so that nobody of the Legion of Doom could break into it. Hence why the vault is like so close to where this party is, because evidently uh, the police department is so sure that this is an unbreakable vault that they leased it out to villains to just showcase that they're never going to get to this. So Harley is wanting to go into this place to go and crack this vault open, this uncrackable vault. And so Poison Ivy is to have all these kids that are trying to approach her and want to kiss her. And so Harley Quinn's like, what's going on? And so Kite Man boasts that he was to uh, be able to get Poison Ivy's poison and give it to these kids. And so Poison Ivy's like, hey, you should not have done that because that's going to kill these kids off. And so Poison Ivy and Kite Man now have to scramble to get Poison Ivy to her apartment to get this poison. And Kite Man is thinking that that's like a lingo for them getting to the bedroom and going at it. And so while Poison Ivy is scrambling to get this poison, Kite Man is scrambling to get his clothes off and getting into her bed. And Poison Ivy's like, Kite Man, what are you doing? And so uh, Kite Man is, well, I thought that meant that we were gonna like we had a really good date, so I thought like we should just like go at it. Like I thought like this was code or something. Poison Ivy's like, no, this wasn't code. So Kite Man gets his clothes back on, and so Kite Man and Poison Ivy are gliding their way back to this bar mitzvah because and it's kind of funny how Kite Man was kind of confused because he's like, well, hey, like, why is it that you wanted to use me as getting from place to place? Like, if anything, you could probably get a car and get there faster. Any random car and you could have got there faster. But anyways, so Kite Man is mentioning that he misread some signs and that he apologizes, and so Poison Ivy's like, well, you know what, with us being so high up in the sky and seeing all this scenery and stuff like that, and Kite Man, you not talking as much, it's like it kind of feels fairly peaceful. So Poison Ivy goes back to the bar mitzvah to give these kids the antitoxin thing so that way they don't die. And so Poison Ivy is to break into this security vault and slap a pony or a unicorn sticker on one of these guards so that way he doesn't talk. So Poison Ivy just kills all these security guards, makes her way easily into this vault to find out that there is a bunch of money that is in this vault, and that it's actually just made up money that it's to be Joshua bucks, because the Penguin is to talk to Joshua and saying you know what, Joshua, as soon as you became born, I realized that I had to become a villain. And so Penguin is to mention it's okay, Joshua, so now it's your turn to continue the family business and for you to be a villain. And so you need to go in and sneak into this vault and try to steal all of this money. And so the Penguin and Joshua are to reveal this wall and find out that Harley Quinn has already gotten through this vault. And And so Penguin is like, oh my god, like you killed a bunch of improvisational guys, and you just made your way into this vault and ruined my son's birthday present. And so Harley was like, sorry, I didn't know that that's what this was. And so all of a sudden it gets to where like everybody is just very upset with Poison Ivy or Harley Quinn, I mean, to the point of eventually Joker coming in and just like really wanting to just get after Harley because of like this stuff and the mistakes that she's made. And so but eventually all of a sudden Joker is to get a phone call and he's like, wait a minute. And so eventually this just like leads to nowhere and it just fizzles out. So but eventually also Joshua is to pick up this Penguin's umbrella and to try to shoot Harley Quinn. And Harley Quinn is like, well, hey, like, you won't shoot me because, if anything, for a person who probably had finger banged a girl, you're probably not going to try and have the confidence to shoot me, right? And like if that's even what you did do to some girl. And so Joshua was like, yeah, like I finger banged a girl, I did it. And then all of a sudden like Harley's like, well, did you finger bang a girl? And then Joshua's like, well, yeah, like I think I did it. Like I was alone with a girl once, and like my fingers were down there, but I don't know if like maybe I did something. But and then so Harley Quinn was like, "Yeah, so you're not gonna pull that trigger, just like you didn't pull that trigger on that girl. So like you're like not going to kill me because of you not killing that girl." And so immediately Joshua runs to his mother and starts bawling his eyes out. And so, like, Harley Quinn has now basically ruined this bar mitzvah, and like Harley Quinn just goes out of there, and like basically that's all that I want to hold this episode to be of any of importance. So, moving on to the next episode. So, Harley Quinn is to realize that she needs people to work with her, and it seems that she needs to figure out how exactly to do that. And so eventually Harley is immediately asking Poison Ivy to work with her, and Poison Ivy's like, you know, I work alone. And so Harley is just like, well, okay, like let me try to figure out another way to be able to like figure out how to get other people to join my crew. So eventually Harley is to go into this bar and there seems to be absolutely no takers. Like there's Felix Faust at this bar. There's a number of also other kind of like random characters here and there in this episode. And nobody is interested in helping out Harley whatsoever. And so eventually Harley is to go uh, and go to this seminar that is to be done by Maxie Zeus, and he is to break down like simple steps to becoming and getting a crew. Where like he just breaks down the fact that like you need to be guys like Darkseid and Joker and Maxie Zeus and any number of anybody of the Legion of Doom to be able to get a crew. And so Harley's like, well, I didn't really learn anything from that. So Harley goes to Zeus's backstage, and so bizarrely Zeus consistently goes and pulls like a basic instinct where he's consistently shifting his legs to showcase his package to Harley. And so Harley sits down and tries to ask Zeus even more questions, and basically Zeus is just consistently hitting on Harley the whole entire time. And Zeus is to show Harley his picture of his giant, like his giant nipples, and so Harley is just kind of distracted by that, and so eventually, like Harley's realizing that she's gonna get zero help from Zeus. If anything, she's going to go after Zeus later on because of like the garbage that she had pulled, or that Zeus had pulled. So also, we get Harley that is to go and talk to the Queen of Fables, who Poison Ivy is to mention this character, and then eventually Harley is to go into this Queen of Fables and find out that she is not some queen or whichever, she's just some book. And so the Queen of Fables has to tell us her origin story on how Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman came in, and bizarrely, like Superman, like heat visioned some person to death, and Harley Quinn is like, Superman doesn't do that, and Queen of Fables is like, dude, I'm exaggerating, like who cares? Like so, the Queen of Fables goes on to eventually say that Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman outnumbered the Queen of Fables and just shoved her into a book. And so that's where she is now, having to rely on some gingerbread man named Marty. And Marty's like, hey! So Harley Quinn is like asking the Queen of Fables, well, what should I do? And there isn't really a real legitimate answer that comes out. So Harley just transitions to eventually like watching the news, and Dr. Psycho is to all of a sudden be doing some caper with some like female-ish like superheroes and so on and so forth. And so all of a sudden Dr. Psycho is to all of a sudden yell out some name of sorts that is to stop everyone dead in their tracks. Even a dog that is peeing on some hydrant has now stopped to hear what this guy is to say and or mutter. And so all of a sudden, like everybody's like, "Whoa, Doctor Psycho!" Like an offensive man. And so all of a sudden, like Doctor Psycho is like going to like his PR guys to like try to figure out how he can like save his image and all kinds of things. And so eventually Harley is to make her way to this bar to say, well, hey, like if anything, like nobody's gonna want to work with Doctor Psycho, so if anything, I can just snag him up. So Harley's going to the bar to meet with Doctor Psycho, and Dr. Psycho is like laughing at Harley. He's like, dude, there's no way I'm going to work with you. If anything, like, I'm working with the Legion Doom, and so there's no way for me to ever go and work with you. And this is also before, like, Dr. Psycho had also went on to this talk show, and he was there with Giganta, and all of a sudden Giganta is to turn like huge, and so all of a sudden like Dr. Psycho is to say that same like name that he was to say in the previous moment, and all of a sudden everyone is to stop dead in their tracks again. The dog and the fire hydrant is to stop dead in his tracks again while he was peeing. And so all of a sudden, like now we get to Dr. Psycho in this bar with Harley Quinn desperately having Harley Quinn like saying like, come on, like work with me, Dr. Psycho. And so that leads to have Dr. Psycho's like, dude, I'm with the Legion of Doom, baby. I have no interest working with you. This is a hard no. And so all of a sudden the Legion of Doom comes on the TV, and so Lex Luthor comes to the podium, and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Psycho no longer works with the Legion of Doom, and for all the things that he has done recently that has caused us to think that he should no longer be a part of the Legion of Doom. And so Dr. Psycho is like, hey, Harley, you know when I said that was like a hard no? Actually, technically, that was a soft yes. And so, because Harley's saying that if Dr. Psycho is to work with Harley Quinn, maybe that is to change his image. And so Dr. Psycho's like, okay, sure, I'll go with you. So, also, we have a bizarrish cowboy that is to be a bartender that we find out that this guy is actually Clayface and that he really desperately needs an acting gig. And so Harley's like, well, I can give you an acting gig. And so Clayface is like, yeah. So Harley Quinn is wanting to sneak into Maxie Zeus's home to steal the Olympic gold medals that Zeus had boasted about at this seminar that he was in, motivating people. So this motivational speaker thing that he was involved in, where he was trying to get people to get a crew, but really that just went nowhere. So so Harley is to say, okay, Clayface, you're gonna go into this house, and while you're distracting Zeus, we're gonna sneak in and we're gonna try to get his Olympic gold medals. So Harley is to tell Clayface that Clayface is just to be some postman, and Clayface is bizarrely wanting a much more thorough backstory of his character than that. And Harley's just like, no, like, you're just a postman. Just go in there and just distract him. And so, uh, so Clayface is to be at Zeus's door, and so Clayface is to say, like, well, Zeus, like, I'm here to deliver your mail, but, like, I'm also here to tell you that you're my father. And so all of a sudden Clayface is delivering this backstory that I guess is to be justified for Zeus to say, well, yeah, I guess you are my son. And so they hug it out. And so, like, Zeus brings a Clayface into the home, and bizarrely, uh, like Harley is in shock because, wow, that actually worked. So Harley is to shove supposedly Dr. Psycho into this vent because I guess he's the only one small enough to fit. And so eventually that is to eventually get both Dr. Psycho and Harley to eventually get to Zeus's like room in his house, where they are to try to figure out where these Olympic gold medals are. And so, or I think it's either the Olympic gold medals or the Olympic rings. They never actually show it, so I don't think it actually matters. So, and so they figure out that eventually Poison Ivy makes the joke earlier in the seminar that there's probably no way that Zeus is going to be getting any sleep anytime soon whatsoever at all because of how much drugs that he normally takes. Like that he's probably on speed or any number of things. So both Harley and Psycho make the consensus that more than likely Zeus is to probably hold his Olympic stuff in underneath his bed. So eventually they start hauling off these Olympic things to make their way to the door to get the heck out of there. And so Zeus is now talking to Clayface and is to mention, like, well, hey, like, buddy, like, if anything, like, I'm kind of surprised that you didn't get, like, the blue eyes that your mother had. And so all of a sudden, Clayface all of a sudden switches his eyes from brown to now blue. And Zeus is like, hey, like, yeah, I guess your eyes were blue all along. Like, I guess maybe that was just the light, and, like, the light was playing tricks on me. And Clayface is like, yeah. And so all of a sudden, Zeus is to start mentioning all the things that Zeus's woman that he was with, like, supposedly had. That she had, like, a hunchback, and, like, she had all these things. And so all of a sudden now Clayface has drastically changed his body to have this like hunch and buck teeth and this lisp and any number of other things that has changed this person to all of a sudden be this drastically different person. To where Zeus is like, aha, like I knew that this guy was a sham. And so eventually Zeus starts beating up on Clayface, and then eventually is to notice Harley and Psycho making it out of there with his Olympic stuff. So Zeus is to stop them, and eventually, like Harley is to mention to Zeus, it's like, well, hey, like you're gonna let us leave with this stuff, and you're also going to like say publicly that Harley Quinn is nothing to mess with. And Zeus is like, well, why would I ever do that? Because all of a sudden, Psycho is to start taking all of these like statues that Zeus is to have and start hitting him with all of them. And so eventually, that just leaves to have Zeus going and is like laying on top of his own statue of himself, where they consistently have to censor Zeus out for one reason or another. And so this news reporter is to get to Zeus, and so uh, like Zeus is to tell that Harley Quinn is no one to f with, and so all of a sudden everybody's like, "Oh my god!" Like, and like Harley Quinn is like, "Yeah, I did it! Like, I got to him," and so really, I would just call that like that's the end of these 3 episodes. So I think with that said, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.